The grand ballroom of the St. Regis shimmered under a canopy of glittering crystal chandeliers, each beam of light reflecting off polished floors and bespoke tuxedos worn by the city's elite. The air was thick with the scent of expensive perfume and the faint hum of a live string quartet, yet nothing in the room cut sharper than Emily Anderson's voice, carrying across the hall with a piercing clarity that drew every eye. Standing confidently center stage, a half-empty champagne flute in her hand, she tilted slightly toward Richard Hayes, her lips curling into a smug, self-satisfied smile. "Everyone always asks about the secret to my rapid rise," she said, her tone a careful blend of sweetness and mockery. "Richard is the true visionary behind my success. He is the engine driving this company forward." Her gaze swept across the crowd and landed squarely on Jack, who stood quietly at the edge of the room, his expression unreadable, posture perfectly composed. Emily's smile sharpened into a sneer. "And my husband, Jack? He is nothing but a financial parasite, a dead weight I've been forced to carry for years. Even that tailored navy suit he is wearing? Paid for by my own hard-earned money." A wave of gasps and stifled laughter rippled through the room, as shocked whispers spread among the elite attendees. Richard Hayes, chest puffed with pride, drew Emily into a possessive embrace that only accentuated the cruelty of the moment. "In this company," he announced loudly, voice ringing with arrogance, "I am the law. And you, Jack? You are nothing but a freeloader, hiding behind your wife's VIP invitation. You do not belong in a room with those who actually build empires." The declaration left the room suspended in stunned silence. Every detail, the glittering chandeliers, the clinking glasses, the shifting of guests' eyes, focusing on Jack, who remained still, absorbing the full brunt of public humiliation with a controlled, almost imperceptible restraint. Jack Anderson remained statue-like, the cool gleam of the chandeliers reflecting off the polished floor and catching the subtle shine of his white gold cufflinks as he adjusted his sleeves with deliberate calm. He did not flinch, did not respond to the biting mockery, and his expression remained unreadable, a mask of controlled composure. Every smirk, every derisive whisper from the assembled elite washed over him, catalogued with precision in the back of his mind, analyzed like flawed projections in a balance sheet he could correct with a single decision. Guests mistook his silence for weakness, pitying the man they thought had been humiliated, yet none recognized the calculated patience hiding beneath the surface. Slowly, Jack slid a hand into the inner pocket of his navy suit, retrieving a sleek, encrypted phone. His thumb traced the screen methodically as he activated a secure channel to his private executive team and typed 3 measured words. "Begin the cleanup." The message sent, the phone returned to concealment. He exhaled calmly, absorbing the tension of the room like a silent predator observing the movements of careless prey. The string quartet's lively waltz played on, oblivious to the electric charge in the air, and Jack allowed a slow, deliberate smile to tug at the corner of his lips. Emily sipped her champagne, unaware that each self-congratulatory laugh, each subtle display of assumed superiority, only tightened the noose she and Richard had woven around themselves. Jack's gaze swept across the crowd, noting alliances, gestures, and the faintest flickers of attention, each one reinforcing the inevitable collapse that would follow when patience and precision finally converged into action. The moment was suspended, tense and expectant, a prelude to a reckoning that would be as devastating as it was inevitable. Richard Hayes, emboldened by Jack's absolute stillness, stepped deliberately into Jack's personal space, his designer shoes clicking softly on the polished marble floor. The scent of his expensive cologne and the arrogance of a mid-level director inflated with false authority preceded him. From a designer wallet, he produced a few crisp $100 bills, crumpled them carelessly, and flung them toward Jack's polished shoes. "Take a cab and get out of my sight," he said, low and venomous enough for the nearest guest to catch every syllable. "Security," he barked, snapping his fingers at 2 guards stationed near the side doors. "Escort this unemployed loser out through the service entrance. He is polluting the air of the true elite." The guards hesitated, caught between duty and the surreal tension of the moment, unsure how to proceed. Emily stood a few feet away, arms elegantly folded, her expression a mix of smug satisfaction and faint curiosity as she watched the man to whom she had once promised loyalty be treated as disposable. She did not intervene, did not flinch, and did not avert her gaze, convinced that she had risen above him, finally claiming her place among the corporate elite. She was blissfully unaware of the precarious position she had created, standing on the metaphorical edge of a cliff she could not yet see, while the man she had so publicly humiliated, the same husband she had reduced to mockery, remained perfectly still, absorbing every slight, every insult, and silently calculating the sequence that would soon shift the balance entirely. Every smirk, every sneer, every gesture from Emily and Richard was being meticulously noted, stored in Jack's mind, and poised to return to them in a reckoning both inevitable and devastating. Just as the security guards moved to seize Jack, the massive, intricately carved oak doors of the ballroom swung open with a commanding thud, sending a ripple of shock through the gathered guests. The string quartet screeched to a halt, their instruments suspended mid-note, and the room fell into an almost tangible, breathless silence. Stephen, the formidable chief executive officer of the conglomerate, strode in with a presence that radiated authority and unspoken power. He was flanked by a silent contingent of executive assistants, each moving in precise coordination, emphasizing the gravity of his entrance. The mood in the room shifted instantly. Those who had preyed upon the weak suddenly recognized the arrival of someone far higher on the hierarchy than themselves. Richard Hayes' face momentarily lit with desperation and forced admiration as he lunged forward, abandoning his attempt to humiliate Jack in order to curry favor with the CEO. "Mr. Stephen." "Sir, you're just in time," he stammered, nearly stumbling as he scrambled toward the executive, a rehearsed, obsequious smile plastered across his face. "I was just handling a pathetic trespasser who tried to sneak into our exclusive gala. Everything is under control," he added, reaching out for a firm handshake. Stephen did not flinch, did not pause, and did not acknowledge the gesture. He brushed past Richard as if he were air, his piercing gaze cutting through the crowd, undeterred by the flustered director's antics. The abrupt dismissal left Richard frozen mid-step, a mixture of shock, disbelief, and dawning fear etching his face. Stephen's eyes scanned the room with an intensity that seemed to part the crowd like a wave before settling firmly on Jack Anderson, seated calmly in the shadowed corner, the only figure whose quiet composure matched the magnitude of the authority now walking directly toward him. The hundreds of elite guests stood frozen, shock etched across every polished face, as the city's most formidable CEO, a man whose decisions had made and broken billionaires, halted abruptly in front of Jack Anderson. Stephen did not extend a hand, nor offer a word of casual greeting. Instead, he lowered himself in a deep, precise 45-degree bow, an unambiguous display of reverence directed solely at Jack. "Mr. Vice Chairman," Stephen said, his voice carrying crystal clear across the silent ballroom, tinged with genuine respect and authority. "My deepest apologies for the delay. The Global Board of Directors has received your emergency filing and awaits your final orders on the restructuring." The words landed like a detonating bomb, leaving the room in a stunned, almost tangible quiet. Every breath seemed amplified in the cool marble air, the weight of recognition suffocating. Vice Chairman, the unseen architect who silently commanded the fate of the entire corporate empire. Emily's jaw slackened, her pale face drained of blood, transforming her from a poised socialite into a fragile, porcelain-like figure. Her delicate fingers lost her grip on the crystal champagne flute, which slipped and shattered against the marble floor, each shard echoing the instant collapse of her meticulously cultivated status. Richard Hayes froze, arms still awkwardly outstretched from the ignored handshake, a flicker of disbelief and panic crossing his face as the realization hit. The man he had mocked, labeled as a financial parasite, was the true master of the corporate hierarchy, the boss of his CEO, and the author of the ruin about to engulf him. The ballroom, once alive with laughter and polite murmurs, had transformed into a stage of silent, electric terror, every guest comprehending that Jack Anderson's authority was absolute, and that the consequences of their misjudgments would unfold in full, uncompromising force. Jack Anderson did not gloat, nor did he allow any trace of satisfaction to disturb his composed exterior. He lifted his glass of lemon water with deliberate care and took a measured sip, the subtle motion exuding an aura of cold, unwavering authority. When he spoke, his voice was calm and precise, yet carried a palpable, almost visceral power that silenced the entire room. "Stephen," he said, locking his gaze on the face of the man who had overstepped, "this room is contaminated by noise, vulgarity, and a complete absence of corporate ethics. Please have Director Hayes and his companion removed immediately. Effective this instant, they are no longer on the payroll of this conglomerate." The security personnel, who only moments ago had treated Jack as an intruder, pivoted instantly, recognition dawning. With exacting precision, 2 guards seized Richard by the arms, ignoring his flustered protests, while another firmly grasped Emily by the elbow. Their carefully constructed facades collapsed in an instant. They were marched backward through the center of the ballroom, every step illuminated by the incredulous stares of high society attendees. The flash of hundreds of smartphone cameras captured every humiliating moment, preserving it for posterity. The murmurs of the crowd transformed from the mockery of Jack into a chorus of derisive laughter aimed squarely at Richard and Emily. Jack's eyes tracked them until they vanished through the oak doors, his expression as unreadable as stone, fully aware that tonight's public display was only the opening act, a prelude to the comprehensive, inescapable consequences that awaited the pair in the corporate arena the following morning. At exactly 8 a.m., the 60th floor executive boardroom was suffused with a harsh, unforgiving light that illuminated every polished surface and exposed the tension thick enough to choke. Jack Anderson sat at the head of the massive mahogany table, no longer in gala attire but in a dark, flawlessly tailored charcoal suit that radiated authority and control. His posture was impeccable, his presence cold and deliberate, a silent declaration that the game was now in his hands. Across the table, Richard Hayes stood, hands shaking uncontrollably, the arrogance of the previous night completely erased and replaced by pallor and a sheen of sweat across his collar. Jack slowly pushed a heavy, leather-bound folder across the gleaming wood until it rested perfectly in front of Richard, the weight of its contents palpable in the air. Inside this binder, Jack began, his voice low and precise, vibrating with contained menace, "is irrefutable evidence of your embezzlement, your systematically forged invoices, and your repeated breaches of fiduciary duty over the past 2 years." He leaned slightly forward, his piercing gaze locking onto Richard's wide, panicked eyes. "Did you truly believe your so-called vision for the department would be enough to hide your theft from me? I designed the auditing algorithms you tried to bypass. I watched every transaction, every diversion, every misstep, waiting patiently for the perfect moment to let you entangle yourself in your own treachery. You have been caught in a web of your own making, and now it is time to face the inevitable consequences of every miscalculated decision you have made." Richard's mouth opened, a desperate attempt to speak, to fabricate an excuse, to beg, but no sound emerged. His throat had gone completely dry. Jack Anderson did not allow a single moment for recovery. His voice, calm, measured, and chillingly precise, delivered the ultimate, irrevocable judgment. At 7:30 a.m., the board of directors convened an emergency session. They have voted unanimously to terminate your employment with cause, effective immediately. Jack tapped a silver pen against the polished mahogany, the sharp click echoing like a judge's gavel across the hushed room. "Furthermore," he continued, unwavering, "a duplicate of that folder is being hand-delivered to the Financial Crimes Division of the federal authorities. By 10 a.m., warrants will be issued. Your corporate accounts are permanently frozen. Your stock options are voided. Your severance package is null and void." Richard's knees betrayed him. He collapsed into a leather chair, the weight of his ruin pressing down with unbearable finality. This was not merely a firing. It was complete erasure. Jack rose from his chair, eyes focused forward, voice steady. "You have exactly 5 minutes to surrender your keycard, your corporate phone, and vacate this building before the authorities arrive to place you under arrest." He did not glance at the man crumpled before him. Richard's mind raced, every carefully curated aspect of his life, career, reputation, wealth, freedom, shattered within a single morning. The chilling truth had set in. By mocking the wrong man at the wrong gala, he had invited the absolute, meticulously executed consequences of crossing someone who had always been far beyond his reach. Jack walked out of the silent executive suite with a long, confident stride, every movement unhurried and deliberate, fully in command of the space he left behind. As the elevator doors opened to reveal the expansive marble lobby of the corporate headquarters, he spotted Emily. She was a shadow of the glamorous woman who had dominated the gala just hours before, her makeup smudged, eyes red, pacing nervously near the security turnstiles. At the sight of Jack, she lunged forward, sobbing, her voice cracking with desperation as she pleaded for a moment of his attention, begging for forgiveness and an opportunity to explain her mistake. Jack did not pause, did not waver. He walked straight past her as though she were invisible, affording no glance, no sign of empathy, only the measured certainty of a man who had nothing left to prove. Before she could attempt to follow, Jack's lead defense attorney stepped between them, a solid, immovable barrier. The lawyer reached into his briefcase and produced a stark, crisp white envelope, handing it to Emily with clinical precision. "Ma'am," he said evenly, devoid of any emotion. "These are the expedited divorce papers from Mr. Anderson, along with an emergency court order freezing all marital assets, bank accounts, and properties pending a full forensic audit of your finances." Emily's hands shook violently as she accepted the envelope, her expression frozen in shock, the full weight of irreversible consequence settling over her. The attorney adjusted his glasses, voice steady and cold. "Mr. Anderson requested I relay one final message. He wishes you the best of luck with the visionary life you chose to pursue, now that you have nothing remaining to your name." Without hesitation, Jack continued through the revolving glass doors, stepping into the bright morning light of the city, leaving behind a scene of personal ruin, shattered illusions, and the echo of a meticulously executed reckoning.